Yeah, so interoception is, broadly speaking, the awareness of what's happening inside our own bodies. And so you could contrast that against exteroception, which would be how we come to know about the world outside our bodies. So most of the senses that we think about, sight, even external touch, hearing, smell, is all about taking information from the outside world. But at the same time, our bodies or our brains have this problem to solve about balancing what's important in the outside world versus against what we need internally, right? And keeping ourselves in balance. This idea of homeostasis, that your body, you don't want to get too hot or too cold, right? You don't want to be too amped up or too tired. So we're sort of getting motivation from the need to keep the body in balance, and how the brain and eventually the mind is able to represent what's happening in the body is the study is interoception, right? So studying interoception is trying to understand, how do we even know what's going on in here, and why does it matter? I think one thing that's really interesting about interoception, originally researchers thought it would be purely like these wires that just come from inside the body straight to the brain. And actually a lot of interoceptionist stuff we kind of feel out through the outside in, but there are some classic interoceptive signals that I could start with. So if you actually start feeling like your heart is racing internally, or that feeling of butterflies in your stomach, probably most common might be feelings of indigestion or fullness. Even feeling this stretch of your rib cage when you're breathing, there are interoceptors, so dedicated receivers that are where the reception side, like the microphone, is inside the body. But I think as research has progressed, we've realized a lot of what we think of as internal body signals also come from the surface of the body, and the skin is actually a great intereceiver. We think of it as trying to feel things outside the body, but a lot of heartbeat detection, even being able to feel your heartbeat, comes from being able to feel the heart and then blood pushing through the heart, thudding against the surface of the skin. So if you put an analgesic on someone's chest, for instance, they will tend to get way worse at heartbeat detection. So it kind of picks a bit at this hard distinction that anything outside is extero and anything inside is intero. There's more than one way inside. I think like any of our perceptual abilities, there's a wide range of sensory acuity and also sensory threshold. So it's like the minimum amount of a signal you need before you can become aware of the information or start to act differently because of the information. I think it's often posited or asserted even that people who are better at interoception are going to be healthier in some way, but that the evidence in the research world doesn't really support that. So even though there are big individual differences in interoception, just because you have a more keen sense of what's happening in your body doesn't necessarily mean that will be helpful or adaptive. And I think the classic case of that are people who suffer from anxiety, and in particular panic attacks, tend to be, on average, way better at detecting changes in their heart rate. But unfortunately, that information has been sort of bound up in a danger signal. So this increased information, if you don't know what to do with it, could be catastrophized, right? And turn into, oh no, I'm not safe now because something's happening in my body, and what if it keeps happening? And that can be the starting few thoughts that's turned into a panic attack. People differ, but I think we have to be sort of agnostic to what a superior intereceiver's life is really like. It could go the other way, and you become much more sort of intuitive or tuned into, your feelings, which ostensibly are coming from these physical signals in the body as well, and make better decisions. But in terms of the empirical research literature, the most we can say is that people who are better at feeling things in their body will be more biased by information from their body than someone who's out of tune from it. But your body is equally wise and stupid depending on context. So if you're doing a gambling task, a casino is totally designed to make you feel this rush of excitement, to make you take a risk. And your body is going to be completely fooled by that. And so you can predict that a strong intereceiver is going to be more likely to make a risky bet if their heartbeat speeds up than a bad intereceiver, but they're not going to necessarily win more money. And the more they're actually provoked into oh, this is cool, I'm excited, this is exciting, this is rewarding, the more they could actually be duped in some way into taking unfair bets. Whereas the best poker players in the world are really just looking up an odds table in their head and then waiting for a magical moment when they can read someone else's own expression of body sensation to beat them in a decision. It has very little to do with feeling excitement. In fact, excitement is a distraction. So maybe that's a lot on that topic already, but there are probably big differences, but I'm not sure that those differences are where this body awareness being good for you really comes in.